In a world that worships noise, chaos, and constant battle cries, there's a force more terrifying than any shout, the quiet rebellion of those who simply walk away. This isn't about loud protests or dramatic exits. It's about the silent power of awakening, the moment when warriors stop fighting the system that betrayed them and choose freedom over fear. Today we dive deep into the story of those who refuse to be cogs in a broken machine. The men who traded blind obedience for fierce clarity and in doing so changed the game forever. This is not just a story of rebellion, it's a story of reclaiming your soul, your control, your life. Tick, tick, tick. That's the sound of a man sitting in silence, watching everything he believed in rot from the inside. At first he tells himself it's just a bad week, just politics, just pressure. But then another order comes down, another lie disguised as leadership. Another innocent face looking back at him asking why. And that's when it happens. That's when the mask slips, just a little, just enough to feel the air hit his real skin, and in that one split second he sees everything. He doesn't scream, he doesn't panic. He breaks, quiet, hollow. The kind of laugh that comes from deep down, where pain and clarity collide. A correct laugh that says they almost had me. They almost made me believe this was real. But now he knows. He knows the badge was never about honor. It was about control. He knows the mission was never to protect, it was to obey. He knows he wasn't called a warrior to make him proud. It was to keep him loyal. And once you see that you can't unsee it. That's when the danger begins. Not for him, but for the system. Because you can't control a man who's seen behind the curtain. You can't guilt him. You can't flatter him. You can't own him. You think these officers broke? No, they woke up. They weren't walking away from weakness. They were walking away from the lie. They were choosing clarity over comfort, purpose over paycheck, fire over silence. And let me tell you, when men like that the ground shakes. Because the system built them to fight for others. But now they fight for truth, for freedom, for themselves. And that's a battle no chain of command can control. No rank can contain, no can suppress. When a soul breaks its leash, you don't get a meltdown, you get a revolution. And it terrifies them, not because of what you'll do, but because of what you've become. Awake, uncontrolled, unpredictable. The scariest thing in the world to the people in charge is a man who doesn't need them anymore. A man who doesn't flinch at their threats, doesn't beg for approval, doesn't ask for permission to breathe. That's who these officers became, and that's who you can become too. Because let's be honest, maybe your uniform isn't made of Kevlar. Maybe your war zone view is a boardroom, a factory, a family, a town that never saw you. But the illusion, it's the same. The pressure to conform, the guilt of disobedience, the fear of letting go. It's all a mask. A mask they then tell you wear this if you want to be accepted. But one day, just like them, you look in the mirror and realize it's not your face. It never was. And when you rip it off, when You take that first breath as your real self. It burns, it stings, it hurts like hell. But it also heals. It wakes something ancient in your bones. It unlocks that wild, untamed fire they tried so hard to bury. You stop walking the straight line. You stop playing by rules that were never made for you. You start moving like a storm, silent, focused, dangerous. Not because you're violent, but because you've become the one thing they never wanted you to be, fully alive. So laugh if you must. Laugh at the old lies. Laugh at the roles they gave you. Laugh at because you finally see how ridiculous it all was. And then walk away from the script. Walk into the fire. Walk into yourself. Because the moment the mask slips, that's not the end. It's the beginning. The system didn't just lose a soldier. It created a storm. They say control is power. That's the lie. The system whispers in your ear from the moment you step into its machine. Obey. Salute. Fall. In line. Make them proud. But the truth. The truth is they never had control. Not really. They only borrowed it from the people who gave it willingly. From warriors who believed. From men and women who signed their names in sweat, bled in silence, and stayed in line thinking loyalty was strength. But here's the twist. Real control isn't given, it's taken. And when these SWAT officers walked out, they didn't lose control. They reclaimed it. Picture this. One by one, boots hit the ground. Not to respond to chaos, but to walk away from it. Cold. Unshaken. That's not collapse. That's not defeat. That's power in its most terrifying form, calculated clarity. Because when someone walks away from everything they were told they had to be, they become something else. Something untouchable. You know what's funny? The system prepares for riots. It prepares for rebellion, for bullets flying, for sirens and smoke. But it never prepares for the quiet exit. It never prepares for the moment when the ones keeping it alive, just when they hang up the badge. Not in protest, not in Breven. No alarms, no yelling, just that chilling sense of we're done. That's when the real fear starts. Not in the battlefield, in the boardrooms, in the tower, in the offices where suits sit behind glass, writing rules they'll never bleed for, because they know once Pro leaves the hearts of the forcers, the system is nothing but paper, ink, empty policies with no hands to carry them. The bulls have left the cage, and now the keepers are exposed. These men didn't panic. They didn't fold under pressure. They Borkland That's not madness. That's mastery. Control isn't yelling at It's Chitainde when you don't need the permission to change yourself. Control is walking into the unknown without a map. Because you finally trust your own compass. It's refusing to let fear handcuff your mind. It's stepping Borkland make, scorched earth and raw instinct. Most people stay caged, their whole lives mistaking obedience for Borkland make, scorched earth and raw instinct. Most people stay caged, their whole lives mistaking obedience. They took every rule, every uniformed lie, and they dropped it. Not Borkland, because they were done being used. That's the real revolution. When you stop asking what work am I allowed to decay, and you start declaring this Borkland is what I was born to become. They didn't just leave Borkland that the world tries, and they proved something the world tries so hard to make. It comes from awakening. Oh, if you've Borkland every the Borkland you don't need to explode to escape. You don't need to burn everything down. You don't even need to scream. Just make the decision. Just take back the pen. Just start writing your next chapter. One step, one brutal truth at Borkland time. They thought they had more control over these warriors. But real warriors, power doesn't tremble at loud brick noises. It doesn't flinch when the streets fill with chants, or bricks when flags burn under the brick-street night sky. No, that kind of noise, that public outcry, it's loud, but it's predictable. It can be controlled, contained, drowned out. But what systems truly fear? What sends chills down their spine is the quiet awakening. The ones who Street don't raise their voices, don't storm the gates, don't demand change with fire and fury. They simply stand up and walk away silently, steadily, irreversibly. They don't beg for justice. They don't plead for reform. They just see ways through the illusion, the entire structure built to consume their souls, and they side they won't be consumed. When? Anymore. Because awakening spreads like a Street virus. It begins with one mind, restless no, and then slowly, others begin to stir from their slumber. That's exactly what happened here. The SWAT officers, didn't just quit. They didn't throw in the towel or resign quietly behind closed doors. They rebelled, not with shouts or riots, but with the kind of power that is deafening in its silence. Quiet, precise, and permanent. Their rebellion wasn't a battle cry echoing across a battlefield. It was a mirror held up to the world, a mirror reflecting a truth too sharp for the system to handle. That truth, that obedience is not honor. That loyalty, when demanded without conscience, becomes a cage. That a badge without a soul behind it is nothing but a tool of control, a symbol twisted into a weapon against the very people it claims to protect. The moment those officers, walked away, the system spun its web faster, spreading labels like wildfire. Emotional, unstable, unfit. But those words, they weren't diagnoses, they were defenses. Because when bricks, the strongest, begin to think for themselves, when their minds break free from the programmed chains, the very foundations begin to shake. Systems bricks are built on sleepwalkers, on blind obedience, on those who keep doing the same thing just because that's how bricks it's done. But these men, they bricks. They saw justice become bricks. A performance, orders twisted by politics. Their roles shrinking from warriors to mere worker bees trapped in a hive ruled by unseen puppeteers. Once bricks, their eyes snapped open. Once bricks, the veil of illusion lifted. They became dangerous not with bricks, fists or fury, but because bricks, they unplugged. They saw bricks, the strings for what they bricks were: lies, manipulation, control. Systems don't fear the bricks, they fear the one who refuses to be a clog. Because that man, he price brick cannot be bought, cannot be guilted back into place, cannot bricks be controlled anymore. He's bricks, already stepped beyond the cage, beyond the uniform, beyond the... He knows that freedom, bricks, doesn't come with a badge or a title. Freedom is bricks, something raw, something untamed, something that you carry in your bones when you decide not to play their game. The awakened don't shout. They don't riot. They bricks. They speak with presence. They radiate a truth no system can fake or silence. Truth that rattles walls, silences noise, unsettles sleepers who hide behind comfortable lies. Because deep down, even the quiet ones know. They just bricks haven't dared admit it yet. But these officers, walking away from careers, from identity, from prestige, not because they bricks lost their way, but because they found it again, became a contagious spark, a whisper to every soul stuck in a broken machine. You're not crazy, you're awake. And whispers grow. What? They multiply until the bricks system, once so certain of its power, watches as the obedient leave, one by one, quietly. Because here's the brutal bricks: truth, rebellion can be punished. But awareness cannot be caged. It cannot be erased. It cannot be silenced. These men didn't need to riot or fight to change the game. They simply woke up and walked away. And that, more than anything else, is what terrifies the system. There's a kind of silence that brick doesn't soothe. It doesn't comfort or calm. No, this silence, fine, is heavy. It's thick with brick fury, long bottled up with brick pain, sharpened into something cold, brick and precise. It's the silence bricks of warriors who've been pushed court too far, who've screamed and bricks their minds 1,000 times, but finally chose not to waste a single word on bricks, a world that refused to weigh here. The SWAT officers didn't storm out with cries or chaos. They didn't paint wrecks the streets with protest or plead for justice on social media. No hashtags, no banners, just works action. Pure, unyielding silence. And wrecks that silence. It roars louder wreck than any shout could ever wreck soap to. When someone who once bricks stood as a shield for Rex. The very system that betrayed Rex them chooses to step back. It's not surrender, it's a Rex to primal warning. It says, you've lost it. When the Brexter protectors leave their posts, the Brex system doesn't just crack. It Brex stands naked, exposed, vulnerable to Brex separate collapse. This wasn't just a Brexter walkout. It was a declaration, a quiet but fierce war cry that shakes the ground beneath the might. This kind of silence terrifies the powerful, because those who Brex dream are still asking to Brex or be heard. They seek permission, they demand attention. But those Brex who stop talking, they've stopped begging. They don't ask for Brex permission to change things. They become Brex the change. This silence holds storms, decisions forged in fire, pain hardened into armor, betrayal Brex burned into unquenchable rage. When Brex quiet, the world should listen, not for the Brex qualm, but for the danger brewing beneath it. And you Brex its silence too. When Brex fortune, when you Brex fortune did something, or someone, only to be drained and discarded like a Brex broken tool. That silence, that moment when you stop fighting in the way they expect, is where revolutions begin. That silence is the stillness right before your storm breaks loose. So use it, harness it, because the fiercest power isn't always a yell. It's walking away, leaving without apologies, without explanations, without a trace. That is freedom. That is Brex strength. You owe no one your chains once they've been forged in betrayal, like those Brex officers. You have the right to say no more, not with loud words, but with quiet action. The aftershock of Brex betrayals. It shattered foundations, commanders scrambled, leaders panicked, policies trembled. Because no Brex expected the guardians to turn their backs. No one expected rebellion without a fight. That's the beauty and the terror of Brex silence. Underestimated too long, unseen too well. They never expected Brex This is your Brex Your walk away is not an end. It's a beginning, a louder Brex waiting to be spoken by your action. The world cannot consume your spirit and expect sweetness in return. No more. Let your silence haunt the halls of power. Let your exit echo like thunder, because sometimes the loudest Brex comes from the quietest. So here's the truth. Real power doesn't roar. It walks away. It doesn't need applause or permission. It chooses itself over the lie, freedom over fear, clarity over comfort. These men showed us that sometimes the loudest rebellion is the silence of those who refuse to be controlled. And now the question is, what about you? Are you ready to see through the mask, to tear down the walls that cage your spirit, and to walk into the fire of your own truth? If this hit your soul, if you felt that spark ignite inside, please like, comment, and subscribe to Twist, because the revolution begins in the silence, and your awakening starts right here.